This time on KEI Fabrication.
Well folks, we managed to land another one. So I'm the kind of guy that every time somebody I work with is selling a vehicle, I usually end up buying it. Hide all the women and children. Hide all the women and children. Hide all the women and children. All the grinding's done. Time to clean the garage. Well folks, I just came back from the scrapyard. So I ran up to the scrapyard. Well, we're up here at the junkyard. Well, we're back in the junkyard. So there it is, it started up and ran. This one has a cracked head. It's the typical 4-cylinder issues. It's an automatic tranny and it is slipping. So the owner decided it wasn't worth putting any more money into. So I do have some plans for this truck. I'll fill you in on that in a while. Alright folks, so what we got going on here is, in the entry to the video you see that I purchased this 2000 S10. The only reason why I bought this was, first of all, it was cheap, and second of all, the back half of the truck was in good shape. I am interested in making a trailer out of this for drag week. So what I did was I put this on Craigslist because the cab is actually in pretty good shape. There's got to be a lot of usable parts on this thing. And the reason why it went up for sale is it was a daily driver. These things, the 4-cylinder engines, are famous for the cylinder heads cracking, and at 188,000 miles, that's exactly what happened. The head cracked. There's enough things worn out on the truck that the owner decided that it wasn't worth fixing and put it up for sale. And like I mentioned before, usually when something goes up for sale, when it's reached the end of its life, a fellow employee or co-worker or whatever, I usually end up owning it. So I bought it, I put it on Craigslist for parts, and I found somebody that is going to purchase everything but what I need. So they're definitely interested in the cab and all of the other related components. They're resurrecting a 4-wheel drive truck that's rusty. This one actually has a pretty good cab. The doors are in great shape, rockers are in decent shape. So anyway, it's going to go down the road. So the reason why I moved it and positioned it like it is, so when the new owner of the cab comes and gets it, they can back their trailer up to it and winch the cab up onto the trailer. So my goal today is to get this thing cut in half, so the cab, everything from the bed forward, is ready to pick up. And it's going to be a heat index of over 100 today. The truck's in the shade till about noontime, so my goal is to get this thing cut in half before it gets to be 100 degrees today. So step one, drain all the gas out of it. I'm going to attempt to jump out the relay for the fuel pump and just pump the fuel into a gas can. If that doesn't work, then I have a siphon pump that I can use. So here we go. Alright folks, so what I got going on here is I've cut the supply line to the engine, put a piece of fuel hose on it, and I've got the fuel pump jumped out, and hopefully there's enough energy left in the battery to empty the tank. It's got like 2/3 of a tank. and you can see the connection I made right there with the hose clamp on it from the factory line, and we've got some pretty good flow. So the fuel smells terrible. This truck's been parked for 6, 7, 8 months, and as everybody knows, look at how white the fuel is. It's just a poor quality 87 octane, but it'll run the lawnmowers and stuff. So we'll get this tank drained down as much as I can, and then we'll go to part 2 of this mess. So one of the things I'm going to try and do here is I'm going to try and maintain the usage of the tank in the truck for an auxiliary fuel tank. So the tank is going to remain in the trailer. I'm going to keep the 12-volt pump active. There'll be a battery mounted in the trailer. The rules specifically indicate that you cannot have anything in the trailer hooked either temporarily or while you're driving down the road to the vehicle that you're racing and competing with. So my intention is to have a 12-volt battery in the truck, use the 16-gallon storage capacity that'll be in this trailer for most likely I'm going to be running the whole week on 93 octane, so I don't have to have cans for race gas or anything like that. So it's a naturally aspirated vehicle. I think I can get away with 93 octane for, it's basically a stock engine with a cam and headers, so slightly larger injectors. So we don't need E85. I'm not going to go there with the tune. I'm not going to run 2 different types of fuel, but we will have the ability to store an additional 16 gallons in here. I'll leave the 12-volt pump hooked to a switch so we can transfer fuel from the trailer to the tow vehicle, and I'll have to get a clarification on the rules whether I have to transfer it to a jerry can and then to the tow vehicle. But anyway, I think the rule is that while you're driving down the road, nothing can come from the trailer to the vehicle in terms of electrical power or any other auxiliary items. So I think if we pull over on the side of the road, take a hose, run it from this tank to the filler on the Mazda, turn the 12-volt pump on, transfer some fuel, put everything away, and then hit the road. So the fact that I'm not doing that while we are in motion and going down the road, I think is what the separation of the rules will be. You can't do anything while you're driving. So anyway, that's the plan. I want to try and maintain the tank and just have some more functionality with the trailer. It's only a 6-foot box, so it falls within the drag race volume. The drag week rules for trailers in terms of volume. Actually, it's way below. I don't know how many spares I'm bringing at this point, and the verdict is still out on whether or not we're going to actually tow a trailer or just put everything in the bed of the Mazda. If I end up getting a spare long block and a spare rear end, a spare transmission, whatever else that we think we might need, then yes, I will bring the trailer. But if not, then we will put everything in the bed of the Mazda and cross our fingers and hope we make it back home. there we have it, folks. 2 pieces. Alright, so earlier I had cut an S10 in half and I ended up with this trailer. Well, I ended up with the box of the pickup body. My intention is to turn this into my drag week trailer. So the reason why I am doing this is because I'm maintaining the factory fuel tank in the S10 chassis because I want to run my race fuel in that tank. So I'm also maintaining the 12 volts pump that's in the tank, so I can flip a switch on and transfer fuel out of that tank into a jerry can if I'm out on the road, or into a jerry can at the racetrack. So the reason why I left the frame rails further beyond the cab is, I'll show you. This toolbox is going to eventually be mounted here. This will be for our clothes. The 12 volt battery to run the fuel pump will be in here, and any other storage situations, food, drinks, whatever, will be in here. The bed is only 6 foot long. This will give me some extra storage capacity. It's way down low. The box itself is lightweight, and it'll be supported by some blocking between the frame and the box. So that's going on here, and then the tongue will extend out beyond that. So that's what we're up to. So even though I probably won't be doing a drag and drive event for a little while, I have a more urgent use for this trailer. As you can see, I really need a dumpster, and once I fill the dumpster, I need to be able to take it to the transfer station to get rid of it. So this thing's been sitting for a while, and I need to make it useful and functional. And if it doesn't work out what I need it to be when it's all said and done, maybe I can put it on Craigslist or Marketplace and give somebody a nice functional utility trailer. Alright, so we've got it prepped for the areas that are going to weld. The plan is to slip fit some 2x4 box tubing into the factory frame rail. I've got it scribed, so when I cut it off it'll be equal length both sides and perpendicular to the bottom edge. My frame rails will slide in. That'll be long enough to support the box, and then a cross member will go up front here, and the tongue will extend out from there, and right in front of the fuel tank will be another cross member that the tongue will connect to try to prevent or help assist in the bending of the tongue. So it's going to be way overkill. You'll see when it's tacked together. My goal right now is because I'm quite a ways away from the garage, I need to get enough of the hitch tacked together and maybe C-clamp it or even bolt it in place because my welder won't reach out here. I'll do most of the tongue in the shop on the bench, and then I can hook it up to something and drag it across the driveway up to the shop where my welder will actually reach, and hopefully I can get it far enough in the shop to get out of the wind because the wind is howling today. So that's the goal. Make this thing a roller, get it so it hooks to the vehicle, even if it's just a matter of getting everything in place, getting it over to the shop, getting it tacked in place. At least I can move it around and eventually, when I get time, weld it all together. Alright, so what I did there, folks, was I drilled a hole on the top of the frame rail and the inside of the frame rail because I'm slipping a piece of 2x4 box tubing inside, and I wanted to have a big old plug weld to gain the strength because I'm not going to be able to weld inside. So that's one way to gain strength. And what I'm going to do on the outside of the frame here on both sides is, you can see I've cleaned it up. Well, that is a recessed piece. It's stamped and pushed the metal inboard of the outside of the frame, and it won't allow the tubing to sit flush with the outside. So I'm actually going to cut shape into that to remove that recess, and I'll also have a big old rosette or plug weld on the outside. So the back half of the tubing that slipped inside the factory frame will have 3 plug welds, top, outside, inside. And the bottom of the frame, this frame is much longer than 4 inches. So eventually what I'll do is I'll slice along the bottom, bend it up, and weld it all into the bottom of the 2x4 box tubing. So I'm going to cut the little, I'm going to try and do like a diamond shape plug there if I can. So anyway, let's keep working at it. Alright, so we got 90% of the prep work done, so I can start putting some pieces in this thing. I squared off the ends of the frame, grind all the areas it's going to be welded, and now I can start fabbing up the section that's going to slide into the factory frame rails. Alright, so what I've done is I've tacked the tongue together, a portion of the tongue for the dumpster slash drag wheat trailer. This part will get engaged with the factory frame, and then the tongue will actually intersect this and go to another cross member behind this further back into the frame, and then the tongue will actually be perpendicular to this sticking out. So I'm going to go fit this outside. I just tack weld it with the TIG welder. It's nice and strong. Make sure it still slips inside the frame outside. Alright, so that's kind of what it's going to look like, and then the tongue will intersect the further back cross member, the main cross member, and then extend outward. You can see where I cut the diamonds in to get my plug welds, and also some plug welds from the top and inside at the front. So it'll be welded up solid all the way around. So I scribed it so I know where to put it back to. I'm going to take it inside, weld these corners up, and I'm actually going to make sure that the modifications to these two cross members are done, so when I put the tongue in place it'll kind of be ready to rock and roll. Alright, let's finish this thing up. What's wrong with that? The long end's supposed to be to the outside. Good thing I didn't weld it. That's better. Alright, so the whole purpose of doing a notch halfway through each tube and then putting together is because the trailer is going to be trying to bend this way. The compression part is the strongest part of the top part of this tube here, and the tension part is the strongest part of the tube. That's the tongue. So when I weld it together, is it better than just having, you know, cut pieces? Probably. Alright, what I did was I cut myself a shim because this is a 2.5 inch wide coupler, and I used 2.5 by 3/16 wall tubing, and I just cut the weld seam off so it'll sit flush on the tube. And then this will go on here, and I'll weld one to the big tube, and then I'll weld this to that. So I've taken all the galvanizing off everywhere I'm going to be welding. I still have to use the flapper wheel to take some of the areas that I can reach with that. I got down inside with the burr tool. So once I do that, I'll tack it together. The whole purpose of getting this where it is right now is so I can stick this in the tongue like I showed you, C-clamp it in place, and then actually pull it out of the hole and get it close to the garage so I can weld all this up permanent. So let's see how that goes. Alright, that should get me across the driveway. What do you think? Think it'll make it across the driveway? I hope so. You guys let me know when I'm close, okay? Good job, gang. Thanks. See how it goes. Well, that towed pretty good. I gotta knock it back into shape, throw some tack welds on it. I hear the church bells ringing. That means it's lunchtime. If I skip lunch, I might be able to finish this today. Alright, I've got it pretty much all tacked into place, or ready to tack into place. I've checked the squareness of the tongue versus this cross member. I've checked the height of this cross member. I've measured diagonally from the factory reference points in the frame to the center of the ball, and it's good. Now the only reason why this weight is on here, this is a 50-pound weight, is I've got wedges driven in under here to force it up to the top, and I want to make sure that it's not tilting it like this. So I'm just encouraging it to seat against the top of the frame in the back and hold it there while I tack everything into place. So my confidence is a little higher now that I've double checked everything. So I guess there's nothing left to do but tack it. Alright, I'm just going to double check everything and then I'll run around and burn it all in. Alright folks, 1:30. When I opened the garage door and moved the welder out, it was 12 noon. So the remainder of welding is just those two little holes on the bottom where the 2x4 didn't reach all the way to the bottom of the frame. And I got to weld the chains on for the safety chains. The last thing I'm going to do is I got to drill a hole through the tongue on that rear cross member and I'm going to run the wiring for the lights through the tongue just to maybe reduce the chances of it getting all cut up, tore up. And then the final thing will be, there's always another thing, right? The final thing will be whatever supports I need to put the toolbox on and raise it up high enough so it misses the fuel tank. Alright, let's get going and finish this thing up. Good thing I skipped lunch today. Alright, we got the lights all figured out. We got the box on. We made a angle iron cross member to receive the box. The holes are drilled. It's not bolted down yet because I got to paint everything. Alright, so not bad for a day's work. Alright, first test run of the old S10 dumpster. Going to the scrapyard. Alright, the payback on the trailer is beginning. Slowly. $31. That basically pays for the coupler and chase safety chain kit. Alright folks, that's it for this time. Remember, if you can't be good, be spectacular.